Hey everyone, especially to you sir. First of all, I will introduce myself first. I am Kenneth P. Divinagasya, a base cream student. So, my topic for today is chapter 2, which is the nationalism and patriotism. So, this is the basic concepts of nationalism and patriotism. So, nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology and movement defined by promoting the interest of a particular nation, in particular with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. Smith, 2010. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself, free from outside intervention, that a nation is a natural and ideal political basis, and the nation is the only legitimate source of political authority. Finlayson, 2014. It also aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion, politics, and belief, in a distinctive shared history, and to promote national unity or solidarity. Yak, 2012. Nationalism therefore seeks to preserve and encourage a nation's traditional culture. And culture revivals have been connected to nationalist movements. It also fosters pride in domestic accomplishment and is strongly associated with patriotism. Nationalism is often paired with other ideologies, for instance, conservatism or socialism. Types of nationalism. Nationalism can be expressed along several ethnic, cultural, religious, or ideological lines. These self-definitions of countries are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism, although these categories are not mutually exclusive, and many nationalist movements combine to differing degrees some or all these components. Number 1. Ethnic nationalism, or the ethno-nationalism. The country is described from prior generation in terms of ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of a shared culture among group members and generally a shared language. The nation's membership is hereditary. The state derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic groups homeland and from its obligation to safeguard the partially domestic group and as a group to promote its family and social life. In contrast to Western opinions of a country defined by its geographic territory, theorist Anthony D. Smith utilizes the word ethnic nationalism for non-Western notions of nationalism. The word ethno-nationalism is usually used only in relation to nationalists who support an explicit ideology. Along these lines, the more generic word is ethnic nationalism, and is used by nationalists who hold such views in an informal, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. The pejorative type of both is ethnocentric nationalism or tribal nationalism, although tribal nationalism may have a non-pejorative significance when debating African, Native American, or other nationalisms that publicly claim a tribal identity. Number 2. Civic nationalism, or the civic nationalism. The step derives political legitimacy from its citizens. The will of the individual's civic nationalism lies within the traditions of nationalism and liberalism, but it is contrasted with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. Civic nation membership is regarded to be voluntary. The growth of representative democracy in nations such as the United States and France was affected by civic national values. State nationalism, often coupled with ethnic nationalism, is a version of civic nationalism. It means that the country is a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and that there is the person to contribute to the objective. The country is supposed to be a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and where the person exists expressly in the society to contribute to that objective. This often results in fascism, generally characterized by authoritarianism, and the nationalism. Fascism is a political ideology. So next is number 3, expansionist nationalism. A radical form of imperialism that includes independent patriotic feelings with a faith in expansionism, generally through military aggression. The word was coined in the late 19th century as European powers indulged in the scramble of Africa in the name of domestic glory, but was most closely linked with the militarist governments in the 20th century, including fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, the Japanese Empire, and the Balkan nations of Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Hungary. Nations are not believed to be equivalent to their right to self-determination. Some countries are believed to possess features or qualities that make them superior to others. Therefore, expansionist nationalism argues the right of the state to expand its boundaries at the cost of its neighbors. Number 4, romantic nationalism. It is otherwise known as organic nationalism and identity nationalism. Is the form of ethnic nationalism in which the state derives political legitimacy as a result and expression of the nation's natural. It is based on presence of a historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal. It expresses romanticism values and opposes the rationalism of enlightenment. A historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal was emphasized by romantic nationalism. Folklore involved as a romantic nationalist notion. Next is number 5, cultural nationalism. The country is described by shared culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is an instance of cultural nationalism, partially due to China's many national minorities. Membership in the nation is neither completely voluntary nor hereditary. However, a traditional culture can be more readily integrated into the lives of any person, particularly if the person can obtain his or her abilities at an early point of his or her own lives. Cultural nationalism has been defined as a variety of non-civil or ethnic nationalism Number 6. World nationalism. Nationalist feelings are the outcome of opposition to colonial rule to survive and maintain a domestic identity. Next, number 7. Liberal nationalism is a kind of nationalism lately defended by political philosophers who think that a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values or liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can exist. Tamer 1993, Kimlicka 1995, and Miller 1995. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful independent life, people need a national identity, and those liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. Liberal nationalists often defend the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need a domestic identity to lead meaningful independent life, Kimlicka 1995, and that liberal democratic politics need domestic identity to work correctly. Ernest Renan, author, or QSCQUE Nation, and John Stuart Mill are often thought to be early liberal nationalists. Number 8. Religious nationalism. Nationalism connection to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a shared religion contributes to sense of domestic unity and a mutual bond between the nation's people. This connection can be divided into two dimensions: religion's politicization and religion's converse effects on politics. In the former aspect, it can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity, a common bond between the nation's people. The support of a national identity comparable to a shared ethnicity, language, or culture is another political element of religion. More ideological is the impact of religion on politics, where present interpretations of religious concepts inspire political activism and action. For instance, legislation are enacted to encourage stricter religious adherence. Joachim Meyer, 1996. Number 9. Pan-nationalism. Ethnic or cultural nationalism refers to a country that itself a cluster of associated ethnic and cultural communities, such as Turkish peoples. Next, number 10. Diaspora nationalism. Diaspora is an ethnic population residing outside their traditional homelands. In this type of nationalism, there is a nationalist sense: the Irish in the United States, the Jews in the United States and elsewhere, and etc. Number 11. Stateless nationalism. On nationalists, the Catalans and Basques in Spain, an ethnic or cultural minority within a nation state, aims independence. Number 12. National conservatism. A political term mainly used in Europe to describe a version of conservatism that focuses more on domestic interests than conventional conservatism, while not being unduly nationalist or pursuing a far-right agenda. Next, number 13. Revolutionary nationalism. Revolutionary nationalism is an ideological theory that calls for a domestic group united by shared sense of intent and destiny, also known as radical nationalism. It was first ascribed and strongly promulgated by Benito Mussolini to followers or revolutionary syndicalism in France and Italy. At the start of the 20th century, this intellectual synthesis of radical nationalism and dissident society was created. Next, number 14, left-wing nationalism. Left-wing nationalism, also sometimes referred to as socialist nationalism, relates to any political movement combining left-wing or socialism with nationalism. Notable samples include the 26 July movement of Fidel Castro, which launched the Cuban Revolution in 1959, to oust the American Black Fulgencio Batista, Ireland's Sinn Féin, Israel Labor, Zionism, and the African National Congress. Next, the patriotism. So what is patriotism? Patriotism or national pride is sense of love, dedication, and attachment to a country and the alliance with other people who share the same impression. This attachment can be a mixture of many distinct emotions, including ethnic, cultural, political, or historical elements related to one's own country. It is a predominant virtue linked to a nation's love with greater emphasis on values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be willing to offer any sacrifice to his nation. He'll never live alone egotistically, for example, for the sake of his country. A soldier makes the ultimate sacrifices of his life. No other reason than being a citizen of the nation. Patriotism is a dedication to one's nation. In essence, patriotism is a sense of attachment and dedication to a country, nation, or political community, or just country love. So, kinds of patriotism. The English word patriot is first known in the Elizabethan period. It originated from Latin 6th century. Patriota via Middle French, meaning countryman. Finally, from Greek patriotis, meaning from the same nation. Patris, meaning fatherland. Liddell and Scott, 2013. The abstract noun patriotism appears in the early 18th century. By adhering to a national religion, patriotism can be reinforced. This is the reverse of the church-state separation requested by the Enlightenment intellectuals, who saw patriotism and religion as analogs and opposing forces. Michael Billig and Jean Bethke Elstein both asserted that it is hard to discern the distinction between patriotism and faith and depends heavily on the attitude of the person who does the label. Billig, 1995. So, kinds of patriotism. Number 1. Patriotism of duty. This includes fidelity to one's nation through material acts. This is military service, patriotism, and other selfless sacrifice types. This is where patriotism becomes embodied. And its ideals take praiseworthy particular actions. Next is number 2, the patriotism of affection. This is the patriotism of the heart. It is about one's internal desire for his country, while being the patriotism of affection can be seen in the patriotism of duty. But it does not necessarily result in it. One can truly love his country and yet be a coward, just as one can theoretically fulfill a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country's welfare. Next is number 3, patriotism of manners. This is customs, patriotism, written and unwritten. The patriotism of manners is to place one's hand over the heart during the national anthem. It can be performed by anyone without actually needing affection or duty patriotism. While the above types of patriotism show, at least in part, the real beliefs and hopes of a person, that patriotism of manners establishes mostly a set of protocols. Types of patriotism. So this is the types of patriotism. Number 1, personal patriotism is emotional and voluntary, such as respect for the flag or the honoring or of veterans. Other expressions of personal patriotism include enlisting in the army, public service, and participation in the political process through voting or other forms of activism. Number 2, official patriotism, promoted by the government, which has a high symbolic and ceremonial content. It is logical consequence of the state itself, which derives legitimately from being the expression of the common good of the community. National monuments and veterans days and commemoration ceremonies are typically examples. Often official patriotism is highly regulated by protocol, with specific methods for handling flags or specific pledges and displays of allegiance. Official patriotism relies heavily on symbolic acts such as displaying the flag, singing the national anthem, saying a pledge, participating in a mass rally, placing a patriotic bumper sticker on one's vehicle, or any other way of publicly proclaiming allegiance to the state. Number 3, symbolic patriotism. In wartime is intended to raise morale in turn contributing to the war effort. Number 4, peacetime patriotism cannot be so easily linked to a measurable gain for the state, but the patriot does not say it inferior. Levels of patriotism vary across time among political communities. Typically, patriotic intensity is higher when the state is under external threat. Difference between patriotism and nationalism. While the term patriotism and nationalism were once regarded as synonymous, distinct connotations were assumed. While both are people's feelings of affection for their nation, the values on which they are based are very distinct. Patriotism feelings are based on the country's positive values like liberty, justice, and equality. The patriot thinks that both their country's state system and individuals are based on the country positive values, inherently good and working together to achieve a better quality of life. On the other hand, nationalism emotions are based on the belief that one's nation is superior to all others. It also holds a connotation of other countries' distrust or disapproval, leading to the premise that other states are competitors. While patriots do not degrade other countries automatically. Nationalists do sometimes, to the point of calling of the global dominance of their country. Nationalism is the polar opposite of globalism by its protectionist beliefs. Historically, both positive and negative have been the impacts of nationalism. While it has motivated movement of autonomy, such as the Zionist movement that formed contemporary Israel, it was also a main factor in the increase of the German Nazi Party and the Holocaust Lonely 2019. According to Sidney G. Harris, the patriot is proud of his nation for what it does, and the nationalist is proud of his nations whatever it does. The first approach generates a sense of accountability, and the second of sense of blind stability leading to war. On the other hand, nationalism emotions are based on the belief that one's nation is superior to all others. It also holds a connotation of other countries' distrust or disapproval, leading to the premise that other states are competitors. While patriots do not degrade other countries automatically, nationalists do not degrade other countries automatically, the point of calling for the global dominance of their country. Nationalism is the polar opposite of globalism by its protectionist beliefs. Historically, both positive and negative have been the impacts of nationalism, while it has motivated movements of autonomy, such as the Zionist movement that formed contemporary Israel. It was also main factor in the increase of the German Nazi Party and the Holocaust. The patriot is proud of his nation for what it does, and the nationalist is proud of his nation whatever it does. The first approach generates a sense of the accountability, and the second of sense of blind stupidity leading to war. So that's all, sir. Thank you.